My name is Vaia Touna. Originally I'm from Greece. That's why the name sounds a little bit not American. But I am an associate professor at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And my interest, my research interest have over the years shifted. I was trained as a scholar in looking at religion in the ancient world. My MA thesis was on Euripides' tragedy Hippolytus. I was trying to find sort of the meaning of this text and in the context of it. But then when I did my PhD, the shift changed it. And I was more interested in how other scholars talk about religion and why we use religion to describe the ancient world, which then became that sort of thing that I've noticed, and how religion, being an anachronistic term, expanded in how generally we talk about the past. And so my first book was mostly about that, the processes by which we fabricate modern identities by looking into the past and how we use that. So so that's my interest, like from looking at discourses of the past to social formation to identity, stuff like that. I was going back and forth with this question. There are, and I wanted to say, like the first thing that comes to my mind is that everyone has, when someone comes into my class, has an idea of what religion is. Like everyone has the experience, but that I think goes for every discipline. That everyone has an idea of history, and they have their own views. So religion, I think, is the same thing. I think that's kind of the challenge that one has to take into account, that everyone is, in different degrees, knowable of our subject. Yeah. As I said, this is something that one has to take into consideration. So in my teaching, yes, it can be a challenge, but at the same time, because it can be a challenge because you have, a group of students who all have their views and ideas of what religion is. And that can become a problem. I don't see it as a problem. In fact, it can help me use that for my benefit in my course. Like, I'm not in any kind of debate with my students over their views, because we are not about that in our classes. Like, we are looking at why people talk about things and why they classify things this or that way, among which is religion. So shifting what I teach or what I want them to pay attention to, they are able themselves to pull from their experiences they're having into my course, and that challenge basically is overcome. Like, I take it as something to use in my favor. Yeah. There has been a lot of history with the role of the scholar as a public intellectual. I think, I don't know, when it started, but in my mind, it was 1997 when Russell McCutcheon wrote a journal article in the JAR on that very thing. But I think at the time, the role of the public intellectual, the scholar as a public intellectual, was much more different. Practically, it was different. I think that the scholar was much more confined in the university, in the academy, they were consumed with their own work. And when they were being public, it was a different sort of needs that those scholars were serving. But in that same article, McCutcheon is making a very interesting points of what the role should be, especially when it comes to the study of religion as with an approach towards a critical sort of a critical approach to the study of religion. And so I think since then a lot have shifted and changed, and especially the last 10 years with the blog posts that we are seeing, with podcasts that we are seeing, more and more scholars are actually in the public sphere a lot more than they were 20 years ago. And so what we are seeing with those blog posts and the podcast is that we are translating our work that we are doing in our classes to a wider audience. And I think that's the role of the public intellectual. It's not about taking sides on debates, but looking at the debates themselves and trying to analyze and explain why they are happening when it comes to religion or in regards to anything else. And to me, sort of how we should be giving our work to the public is, in my mind, there are two examples, or maybe three, maybe many, but the ones that I have in mind is Culture on the Edge and the Religious Studies podcasts, the Religious Studies project, which has podcasts. With Culture on the Edge, it was mainly blog posts that we were doing, and we were looking how identity forms and works with everyday examples. So it was very much easy for someone who wanted to understand what it is that we are doing in our classes, that we were offering that through a series of examples that were more digestible for them or more easy to understand, but it was about a critical approach to the ideas of identity formation. And the Religious Studies Project, I think, is doing similar things, but now the medium is a little different. It's through podcasts, and I think that's equally important. And we are, I think, it is important for the scholar of religion to do this kind of work. Right. My lecture is actually part of a larger project that I'm thinking right now. Part of it has been in a Festschrift for Willie Brown. And in fact, because I thought it sort of appropriate to give some of that parts of this paper in Hanover, because Willie Brown was here 10 years ago. His paper is here in this wonderful edited volume that you have done. And my work is on, my paper is on why religion, although we all agree, all the scholars, most of the scholars who study the ancient world, whether it's Greece, Rome, Mesopotamia, native, but we all agree that religion as a term has a very modern history, especially if one defines it as belief in gods, which is a very private sort of quality, that we don't necessarily see it. It's far more complex in the ancient world, and by more complex I mean the words that we normally translate as religion. In the context that we are seeing them, they are far more complex. So despite that, there is still we see two trends: either get rid of it or use it. But my sense is that we hold on to the category, even though we admit to the problems that it may create. But then what I'm suggesting in the paper, and as I said, this is a larger interest and project of mine, is not, the problem is not religion per se when we are looking into ancient material. The problem I find is our longing to find a way to describe realities in the ancient world as best as we can, free from misconceptions, free from anachronisms, perhaps free of all these things, which I think it's the gap between us and them. And the fragmentary nature of the past is such that there is no way that we are not going to be inserting anachronism, our narratives, to make sense of it. But we oftentimes confuse this anachronisms, the narratives that we are making, as if they are not ours. And so that's what I'm trying to suggest in the lecture that I gave. This is what I'm arguing in the lecture, but I'm also trying to put in place some things of how can we overcome that. And it's still work in progress. Yes, unfortunately, it is coming to an end. It has been a lovely 2 weeks to discuss with colleagues, meet new colleagues, and discuss with them. And these are great opportunities because we oftentimes think that the problems we may be having in our institution, or the struggles or the challenges, right, that it's just ours. But when we are going to, another university, meeting other people, we realize that it's more cross-cultural, but it's not, okay, now I feel better. It's that through the discussions, you gain also insights and clarities of what you can do to overcome some of those challenges. And then the collaborations that hopefully and potentially come from these sort of meetings. So I'm sort of looking forward to what my visit here will bring in the future. And then, of course, meeting with the students. It has been such a pleasure to discuss with them their worries about the future, their ideas, or how they see the study of religion. And it was nice to hear also from them how relevant the study of religion, especially in the way that obviously your department here in Hanover is doing, for them to realize that even if I'm not going to be an academic, I still see value in this sort of approach that we are pursuing here in Hanover. And some ideas that sort of come to me while talking with the students, yes, about this same things. And of course, then it's the city of Hanover that has been quite interesting, though I think it's still a lot of things are sinking in. It's a wonderful city, very walkable, or riding a bike. Looking all the sites, I was impressed. I mean, I didn't know really about how much it has been affected by World War II, but it's not easy to see it when you are walking around the city, which I think it's such a wonderful project to think about. Again, in relation to how we talk about the past, how we restore it, how we imagine it, I think I walked through that in Hanover, and I think I will still need some time for everything to sink in before I say anything more. But it has been a wonderful stay, and I'm grateful to you, Stefan, for the invitation once again.